Hello and welcome back to the CarveCast. This is episode number 22. I actually can't believe how quickly these episodes are going by, and I have got a lot more in the pipeline. We've got lots more guests, lots more stuff coming up, lots of ski trips over the winter, and I am extremely excited for the CarveCast over this coming winter period. Now, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, you're going to be looking at this scene thinking, what on earth is he doing? And basically, for those of you that are listening on a podcast app, what we've got here is, in front of me, is a collection of 5 different ski boots. They're all lined up in front of me, and the guys on YouTube can only just see my head over the top of them. Now, what I'm going to go through in this episode is a complete breakdown of my ski boot journey, in the hope that it will potentially help somebody else that may be either experiencing some of the things I experienced or looking to upgrade their boot, buy a new boot, doesn't know exactly what they're looking at or how to go about doing it. And this is really like the precursor video for some future videos that I've got coming up with some boot fitting experts. Some of them have already agreed, and I will be mentioning those in this video. But this is my journey. This is just about what I learned. It may not all necessarily be 100% technically accurate, because I am not a boot fitter and I definitely am not proclaiming to be one. But what I can tell you about is just my own experience, and hopefully that will add to your own and help you make a better decision when it comes to buying ski boots and having ski boots fitted. Now, the first thing I do need to say is that the ski boot is the most important part of your equipment. Now, for those of you that have been skiing for a fair amount of time, you'll already know this, and you've heard it 100 million times before. And for those of you that are starting your ski journey, you might have heard this before, but you might not understand how true and how important it is. So before we start any of this, that needs to be said. In addition to that, what also needs to be said is that if you are looking to buy either your first ski boot, maybe you've been on rentals for a period of time and you're looking to buy your own first boot, or you're looking to change your boot to a different boot, maybe yours is out of date or it's broken or it just doesn't fit you in the way that you want it to fit and you want to buy some new ones. Maybe you've seen one that you like the look of and you really fancy buying it. Don't do that, by the way, but we'll get onto that later on. If you are one of those people and essentially you're looking to get a boot through some reason or another, there's one thing I will say to you, and that is go to a boot fitter, and don't just go to any old boot fitter in some shop where it's just someone who's just learned how to do it. Go to someone whose entire life and passion is fitting boots. You may not think that that is something that is out there, but I can guarantee you it is. And those are the kinds of people that are going to give you the absolute best experience in terms of getting your new boot, and also going to make sure that your boot fits you properly, gives you the best performance, the best comfort in most cases that you can possibly get, and therefore the best potential for skiing to your full ability moving forward. I cannot stress that enough. Even if you get to the end of this episode and you think, wow, I've really learned a lot, you know, I can relate to a lot of things that Adam has said, that is not enough. You cannot just go out and pick a pair of boots off the shelf. You must go to an experienced, expert boot fitter. It's the most important advice you'll ever get when it comes to skiing, in my opinion, including anything to do with technique. This is the key. This is the foundation for being able to ski to your full potential, whatever that is, whether you're a beginner or whether you're an absolute expert. So we'll start there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through my ski boot journey and tell you the mistakes that I made along the way, the good decisions I made along the way, the things I've learned along the way, and hopefully that will add into your own knowledge and make you in a better position to be able to help choose the best boot alongside your boot fitter, not on your own. That is very, very important. Do not choose your boot on your own. So what I recommend is, if you are listening on the podcast app or Spotify, jump over to YouTube, because I've got all of the kit laid out in front of me, from liners to insoles to boots. I've got dual BOA, single BOA, double clip, double buckle, sorry. I've got absolutely everything. I've got booster straps, non-booster straps. We've got everything here that you could ever need to look at. We've even got cork that you even potentially stuff your ZipFit liners with. So if possible, please watch this on YouTube. Now, let's stop with the waffle and get into the decent stuff. So let's start at the very, very beginning. Coming up to 2.5, 3 years ago, whatever it is, I started skiing on the dry slopes, and there they've got a fantastic little shop there. And I went in there and I said, I want to buy some boots, because once you've been using the normal rental boots for a little while, you soon realize that they are a limitation, and they're also uncomfortable, and they just kind of put you off the whole experience. So if you're in a financial position to do so, right from the very beginning of your journey, I would recommend that you go get some decent boots fitted. And even if you're a very, very new beginner, if you're confident that it's something you're going to do for a long time, go and get yourself a decent set of boots fitted by an expert. So the first one I ever got was this boot here. Now, this is a brown and black K2 Recon 110 BOA. I'm going to read everything out that's on the shell so you know exactly what it is. It says Powerlight X BOA, the R for the Recon. And yeah, it's essentially a brown upper part of the shell, black stroke grey on the lower, with green buckles and green little highlights throughout the boot, and a 110 flex. Now, the reason I got this boot is because I liked the look of it. Now, this is mistake number one, and you probably would have heard this a lot of times, but it's so true. I just liked the look of this boot, so I literally went over to the guy in the shop and I said, I want that boot. Now, I was heavily advised not to do that. I was heavily advised to have a boot fitted and do everything exactly as it should be done. And because I was essentially arrogant and naive, I didn't do that. And it was a mistake. And now I look back, I realize how stupid I was. So don't make the same mistake that I did. Now, in addition to that, when I started trying them on, even though I was told to go with a specific size, because I was thinking mostly about comfort rather than anything else, because I didn't know any better at the time, what I did was I chose a boot that was too big. And this is, you know, basic mistake number two, essentially, behind picking the one that you like the look of. Now, what I did was I tried on the correct size boot, and when you put a boot on, if it is the correct size, theoretically your toes should be pretty much touching the end of the boot. Now, if you are not an expert or you don't understand these things in the way that I do now, all you'll think is, oh, it's too small. What you don't realize or understand is that as you flex the knee over the foot, over the toes, which is called ankle flexion, the foot slides back ever so slightly, drops into the heel slot in the back of the boot, and therefore the toes are no longer touching at the front. And that means that you're in a pretty much a very good boot size in terms of the length. So all I was thinking about was like walking around, will it be uncomfortable, blah, 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 blah. All of the incorrect things were going through my mind. All I should have done was listen to the boot fitter at the time, and I would have not wasted hundreds of pounds on a boot that I used for a very short period of time before realizing that it was basically not ever going to work for me. So that was the mistakes that I made in terms of choosing that boot. Now, something else that is important is also the flex. Now, these are actually all different flexes. This is a 110, this is a 120, this is a 140, this is a 140, and this is a 130. So basically the K2 is a 110, the Fischer is a 120, I forget the name of that boot, the MV I think it is. The Fischer RC4 Pro that comes with the ZipFit is a 140. My Lange boots, which are the race boots, they are a 140, and my head BOA 2 caliber 130s are 130s. So that gives you a breakdown of the flexes. Now, what you need to understand about flexes is they're basically a nonsense number. So it's a very, very irritating thing, especially when you're basically new to understanding about ski boots and liners and everything else, because the flex means very, very little. You essentially have to understand that the higher the flex, so up to like a 150, should theoretically be a very stiff boot. And all the way, as you come all the way down to maybe like a 110 or even less, like for a lady, a 90 or an 80 or whatever the case may be for a child, the flex is less stiff. So it's easier to flex your knee over your toes. However, if you were, for example, to get a 110 in a K2 and a 110 in a Fischer and a 110 in a Lange and a 110 in a head, they are not going to be the same flex. And this is, again, I won't say this too much, but this is again why you need to embrace the opinion and knowledge of a good boot fitter, because they will know, for example, like I now know, the 110 flex on a K2 is actually pretty stiff. However, the 120 on this Fischer boot, for example, this is the Fischer MV 120, I believe the name is, RC4 MV 120, and it's the blue boot with the yellow highlights on it. This particular boot is actually very, very soft. Like the 110 in the K2 is stiffer than the 120 in the Fischer RC4 MV 120. So this immediately makes things complicated, and again makes you need to allow the boot fitter to put you in the correct boot that is going to not only fit you correctly but also give you the correct flex. Another thing that I was sort of not necessarily mistold, but that I learned from watching videos and everything else, is that when you're a beginner, you should have a low flex, easy to flex boot, i.e. a lower number. And as you become better, you should then go up the flexes into a stiffer boot. Even though some people might still stand by that, in my opinion, and actually a lot of boot fitters' opinions that I've spoken to about it, and like I said, we are going to get some expert boot fitters on and they can tell you better than I will be able to tell you, that is simply not the case. Not the case at all. And it leads me perfectly into my next boot, which is the one we've been talking about, the Fischer RC4 MV 120. When I realised that this K2 boot was not going to be the one for me, and it wasn't as simple as me just guessing, I went to a boot fitter in Lange where they have a really good shop there, and the boot fitter in there was like, immediately, he's like, this boot is too big for you. It's too big, and it's just not the right boot for you, for your size feet, for everything about it. It's absolutely massive. And what he did is he actually went through and tried to make it fit. And the way that he did that was he essentially went through and he put in some padding around the back, and he put some risers up in the bottom of the boot, and he really did try to get it to fit as well as it could, because he knew that I'd only bought them a little while before and he didn't want to try and make me buy a new boot, although he said ultimately that would be the only option, and he was right, because no matter how much we packed it out, no matter what we did, no matter how good the insole was that he made for me, and he made some insoles for me, we could not get this thing to fit properly. And I tried to stick with it, but I soon realised it was just too big. My foot was not getting trapped in the heel, it was just sliding all over the place. My left foot was lifting, and it was just no good. Now, before we move on to the next boot, I just want to say there's nothing wrong with this particular boot. This is a great boot. I mean, this is quite an expensive boot. I think you're talking somewhere in the region of £300–400, maybe more for this boot. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with the quality of the boot. It's got a great liner, the shell is really high quality. This one has lower BOA, and we're going to talk about BOA later on in this episode. It's got good adjustment, it's got pretty much everything you would want. And at the time, actually, it was one of the sort of latest and greatest boots. It's got a Gripwalk, it's got everything. But unfortunately, it was the wrong boot for me. But I don't want anyone to think that K2 are not good boots, because this is a great boot. It just didn't fit me. And luckily, as a bit of a byline to this, because I've taken so many people who have never skied before on ski trips, for example, my brother, my sister, loads and loads of friends, I've actually got use out of this boot because I've been able to lend it to people who have come with me for the first time and don't have their own boots, and save them the money on renting them. So luckily, it hasn't gone to waste, and I will keep these boots forever. And anytime anyone wants to come with me who's a size up from me, essentially, they can use that boot and they will enjoy using it, and it means that it wasn't like a total and utter waste of money. So that is the sort of positive side of that. Now on to this boot. So this boot, like I said, this is the Fischer RC4 MV120. It's a navy blue boot with the typical sort of bright yellow Fischer writing. Really, really nice looking boot. Now, what happened was when I went to Grindelwald shortly after the guy in the boot shop in Lange told me that the boot was just never going to fit me. On my very first day in Grindelwald, I went to a boot fitter in one of the Intersport shops, and it was just a random shop in the station with a guy that just worked there. He wasn't, you know, some sort of hyper knowledgeable boot fitter. He was just like a guy in the shop that did it during the winter. And he fitted this boot for me. He fitted me some custom insoles, the CDAS ones, which a lot of people will fit for you. And they're a very, very good insole. They put you on a machine and it does loads and loads of stuff, and then they put you in the boot, and he heat molded it. He did everything right. However, again, even though I should have already learnt my lesson, I went in and I said which boot I wanted. Now, as it turned out, this boot actually fit me extremely well. It was a little bit too big, but actually it was pretty much okay for where I was at that particular stage. I was only a few months into skiing by this stage, so I didn't need to be able to create any kind of like massively high performance or anything like that. So even though, yeah, it was slightly too big, not in terms of the length, because I'm now into a 27.5, which is my perfect length, but the last on this is 100mm to last. And what the last means is it means like essentially the width of the boot. Now, quite often the last sizes change depending on the length of the boot. So if you was to buy this boot in, for example, in a 25.5, the last might be like a 98mm. If you buy it in a 27.5 like this one, it's a 100mm. And as the name on the boot says, this is a medium volume boot. So this is for a boot for someone with like a medium volume foot, not a narrow foot, not a really wide foot, but just a kind of, I guess, average foot. Now, this boot actually was really, really good for me. It was fitted properly. It had the correct insole, a custom insole that was made for me, which I think is very important. And in addition to that, it's just a really good boot. Again, I went with lower BOA because I enjoyed the lower BOA on the previous boot. And we're going to talk in detail about BOA as we get to the end of this video, a lot of detail about BOA. And I loved this boot. The problem with me for this boot was that actually, even at that level, or especially as I kind of pushed beyond that level several months later, maybe towards the end of that first season, I realized the flex was too soft. And actually in this boot, it really just didn't support my shin at all. And as I flexed into the boot, it essentially just folded over. So another mistake by me, had I actually spoke to the guy properly in the shop, he might have said to me, you need a strong flex. Now, he did see me flexing this boot, and he didn't say anything to me that it was too soft, because he saw me as like a beginner skier and it's a 120 flex. So actually, I think I remember him saying to me, oh, are you sure this boot might be too stiff if you're a beginner? And that's where they get that wrong, if they're not like a ridiculously experienced boot fitter. But yeah, the thing that was wrong with that boot was only the fact that the flex was too soft. Everything else about it, it fitted me, it was great. You know, very, very high quality boot, good liner, good power strap. The BOA worked great for me, Gripwalk on the bottom. You know, there was really nothing about this boot that I didn't absolutely love. I loved the aesthetic of it as well. I loved the look of it. So I was very, very happy with that Fischer boot. And I highly recommend Fischer to anyone really, because they are an absolutely fantastic quality boot. Now that leads me on to the next boot, which is now we're a year into my ski journey and I'm starting another season. My first ski trip was out to Zermatt, and I was recommended to go to somebody in Zermatt, whose name I now know is Tim, who's an absolutely great guy, become a friend of mine, and he works in Ulen Sport. So that's Julen Sport, and hopefully Tim's going to be coming on the show later in the season. Now, Tim is one of those boot fitters. He's one of them absolute expert boot fitters, and a lot of the ski instructors, if not all of them, give or take, in Zermatt go to Tim for their boot fittings. So I went to Tim, I explained my journey, and I told him that the boot that I wanted, I'm still stuck on this me choosing boot thing, was this boot, which is the Fischer RC4 MV Pro. Now, this boot is a pretty special boot. The reason that this is a pretty special boot is because the Fischer brand themselves did a deal with ZipFit, who make what I think, and I don't think anyone would disagree with me, are the best liners in the ski industry. And they brought out a boot that actually included the ZipFit liner rather than them making their own. Now, if you're watching the video, the ZipFit liner is not in the Fischer boot. I've got a headliner in there at the moment because my ZipFit liner is in my new boot. I don't use these boots anymore, and I just put them liners in there anyway. That's a whole nother subject. Don't worry about the liner that's in the boot. So these boots were the ones I wanted. I said it to Tim and he said, no, that's a great choice for you because you like the Fischer, they fit well. It's the same essential size, but these will definitely be stiffer. These are a 140 flex, and in fact somewhere in the region of 140, 150, because they have a carbon infused top part of the shell. Again, BOA on the lower, clips on the top, and I used these boots for well over a year, probably well in excess of maybe 120 days, something like that, and I absolutely loved them. I had never ever had any issues with these boots whatsoever. Other than the fact that as I'm now pushing on and I'm really putting a lot of effort into getting better at skiing, the issue now became with these boots is that they weren't quite tight enough for the performance that I wanted to achieve, because they're a medium volume boot. Now, even though on one side of my feet I have a big foot, I did martial arts for like 30 years, so my right foot is really, really damaged from that. So it's really swollen all the time and it's big, but my left boot is actually quite a narrow foot. So it's very difficult to fit a boot for me. But essentially the narrative really with a boot should be that it's too small for you and they make it fit through making physically the boot bigger. That's really what you want to be going for when it comes to a ski boot. You want it to be way too tight, essentially in points, and then for the ski boot fitter to widen the boot or to punch out or to do whatever they need to do, grind, whatever it is, to make that boot fit you, rather than having one that's too big and then trying to pack it out. And as much as I stuffed cork into the Fischer liner to try and make it that little bit tighter, it just wasn't happening. And I'd also got to the point where the buckles at the top were on their tightest setting and they still weren't tight enough. So it would have meant that I would have needed to bring the buckle back, which is an easy thing to do. The holes are even in there. But me being me, I decided to get another boot. So I was going to use them in parallel with one another. So I was going to keep my Fischer boot for when I was skiing with friends and family and I was just pottering around, because they're super comfortable. The ZipFit liner, I will never, ever, ever not have a ZipFit liner. They're just the best thing in the world. And I loved these boots. I skied nicely in them. They were absolutely fantastic. That's the Fischer RC4 Pro with the ZipFit liner. So they're a yellow, bright yellow Fischer colour with a black cuff at the top of the shell. 140 flex in a 27.5 with 100mm last. And they were just fantastic boots. So I thought what I'll do is I will get a race boot. Now I understood a lot more about it. I understood what I just spoke about, which is getting a boot that's too small and having them physically fit it to your foot. And that is what I did with my next boot, which is the blue Lange. Now this is an RS140 WC, and this boot, finally, I didn't choose. I went into the shop, I spoke to one of the best boot fitters in the country, which is Billy from Ski Bartlett. I said, I want a race boot, fit me up, I don't want any input on the brand, I don't want to choose one, I want you to just do your job, as you should let them do, and put me in the exact right boot. And Billy put me in this boot. We tested loads and loads and loads of different boots, actually, like literally, I'm not joking, maybe 5 or 6 boots. He knew exactly what ones would be roughly good for me. And then we narrowed it down and we ended up with this one. Now, this is a full-on race boot. So this one has a significantly smaller last, which, if you remember, is the width of the boot itself. And what we actually did was we bought a ZipFit liner, because they do come with their own liner, but I wanted a ZipFit liner. So Billy got me and actually, rather than a dedicated ZipFit liner, he got me a Fischer ZipFit liner. So I actually really like the ZipFit liners, but I prefer the ones that Fischer made, because I think they made improvements over the ones that ZipFit themselves make. So even in my race boot, Billy got me a Fischer ZipFit liner instead of a normal ZipFit liner. And we fitted it, we put on a proper booster strap as well, which, by the way, is incredible. You can always upgrade your boot by putting a proper booster strap on. It makes the hugest difference over these standard ones. And this Lange boot is still, to this day, just incredible. I had to make multiple visits to Billy, and we had to do a lot of work on these boots to get them to fit me. We had to punch them, grind them, stretch them. We had to do all kinds of different stuff. And I had to go through quite a few days of being uncomfortable to know what needed to be changed in order to actually get them fit properly. Because when you're in the shop, it's warm, you're not spending the whole day on them, so things might feel comfortable, but after a few hours might not. When you're on the slopes, you're not really putting huge performance through them, so again, that's something else. So the only way to truly test a boot is to get out on the slope with that boot, suck up the pain if you've got any, and note down what the issues are, what hurts, and then go back and have your boot fitter adjust it for you. And that's exactly what I did with Billy, and he got this boot fitting me like a glove. This thing fits so ridiculously well, it is unbelievable. And that is really what made me so enthusiastic about going to a very, very good boot fitter. Like, Billy is absolutely ridiculously passionate about ski boots. So if you're in the UK, it doesn't matter where you are, there are a couple of other good boot fitters in the UK as well, but Billy is absolutely fantastic. Ski Bartlett, go see Billy if you want like an absolutely perfectly fit boot by a very nice guy. And hopefully Billy might even be able to come on the podcast as well. I think I've asked him and I think he agreed. I just need to set up some dates. So yeah, the Lange boot, I love it. It's my favourite looking boot. And to be fair to people that like me that did choose boots a little bit based on the way they look, when you're spending, you know, in this case, maybe even close to £1,000, including the liner and everything else on a boot, I do think that there is an aspect that should allow a little bit of wiggle room for having something that you think looks good. I don't really think that it would be 100% fair to have someone in the perfect fitting boot that they absolutely hated. I think there does have to be a little bit of the fact that you kind of like the look of the boot, but it must only be a couple of percentage of your choice, and it must be the least important thing that you're looking at. But to spend £1,000 on something that you literally do not like anything about other than the fact it fits well, yeah, I think that's a difficult one. But some people may agree, some people may disagree. That's up to you. It should definitely not be the most important or even the 5th or 10th most important. It should be the least important. So that was my experience with that particular Lange boot. Now, the difference really between the race boot and the previous boot, which is really quite a high performance, you know, sort of boot, but not quite a race boot, really is the size of that last. The race boots are going to be ridiculously uncomfortable when you first put them on, and the boot fitter is going to have to fit them and mould them around your foot based upon your pain and pressure points. The other boots that are more recreational are going to have less of that, maybe even none, if they can mould the liner correctly and everything else, put whatever they need to put in. But the extra performance you get out of a boot like this that fits you so ridiculously perfectly and literally you're totally connected to the ski is phenomenal. And I now find it very difficult to not have these boots on because of the level of performance that they give. Now, one thing that did change moving between my previous boot to this boot, this was the first time I've had a 4-buckle boot. And I'm going to save the conversation about buckles and BOA to the very end of this video. And we're going to talk in detail about buckles versus BOA. And remember, this is a subjective, kind of objective opinion. None of this is fact when it comes to BOA buckles, because if you get someone who says BOA is shit, they're just arrogant, because what might be shit for them might be the absolute perfect option for somebody else. And if you get someone that says, oh, you know, buckles are rubbish, BOA's everything, again, that is definitely not right. It might be right for one person, but it might not be right for another. So you can't call things crap or shit if they're just not right for you, or you don't like the look of them, or the idea of them, or something like that. That's just kind of arrogant, really, and ignorant. So we'll talk about BOA right at the end of this video, and we'll talk about Gripwalk as well. So on to my next part of the journey. And you may be thinking, oh, hang on a sec, you had the Fischers, which were great for recreational skiing, and then you had the Langes, which were perfect when you wanted to ski on your own and put some performance in. Why on earth have you got another boot? Now, I won't go into the boring details of the back journey to this, but essentially I got given these boots, and these are the Head Kaliber 130 BOA 2s. And these boots are a double BOA boot. So these are the ones that loads of people are frowning upon and saying they suck and everything else. And remember what I said a minute ago, they do not suck at all. They're a really innovative idea that has been brought into a totally dead flat industry and has literally rejuvenated the industry and helped all of these small shops make more money giving people a bit of excitement about boots again, given a conversation subject. Like, even if you don't like BOA and you've got something against them for whatever reason it is, that is a big positive and shouldn't be overlooked, because the amount of income that a lot of these companies have been able to make, not necessarily the big companies, but at least the little small ski shops, off the back of people wanting BOA, is fantastic, and that's never going to be a bad thing. So I got these and I thought, I'm going to try them, obviously, because why wouldn't I? I wasn't about to sell them or anything else, because I was given them. So I thought I would try them. Now, like I said earlier, once you've used a ZipFit liner, in my opinion, you can never not use them again, because I've tried and they are just so good. They're warmer, they're a better fit, they got a stiffer flex, that you don't get shin bang. You can adjust them over and over and over again. You can literally buy a cork, and they come in these little tubes. You have got multiple entrance points in the liner, and you use this really weird hammer shaped thing, and you put that down the end there, and you push the cork into the liner, and it then begins to mold around your foot as you wear it. You can heat them up and have them mold, but you can literally just start wearing them. And yeah, you might have a few hours or a couple of days of a little bit of discomfort, but they will perfectly mold to your foot. When you think of cork, you think of a actual cork on a bottle. This is not like that. This is like a mashed up cork with like a gel binding it together, and it's this really, really lovely, soft, warm material. It's absolute genius, like total and utter genius. And in fact, my Fischer ZipFit liner, I have two. I've got an LV, which is a low volume, which I use in the race boot, which I bought maybe a year or so ago. But then the MV one is the one that came with my original Fischer boot. Remember I told you that they actually came with the boot? And this liner has now had over 220 days of use. And yes, it is a bit beaten up. It's got like loads of little nicks out of it and bits like sort of peeling off and stuff like that. But it's only basic things. It does not affect the boot in any way whatsoever. And actually the vast majority of the boot is in perfect condition. And I still use these liners. I took them out and I put them into my head caliber boots. I took the liner out of there, which actually them head boots come with a very good liner that is kind of similar to Fischer. You can actually use water, fill it up with like a gel, and it does a similar thing. I've never tried it, so I don't know how good it is, but from what I understand, it's actually very good. And I still use them to this day. Now, remember that if you're gonna buy a ZipFit liner, if you've got like a medium volume boot, you need to get the appropriate liner. If you've got a low volume race boot, you need to get a low volume ZipFit liner. Whether you buy the ZipFit one or whether you buy the Fischer ZipFit one is irrelevant. You need to get a low volume liner. If you try and put a medium volume liner in a low volume boot, it is not gonna work. So that's where we're at with the liners. Now, I needed to get a new insole last season because the one that was in there, I'd basically destroyed it through continuously taking it in and out and drying it and all the rest of the stuff. So I went to the ski centre in Courchevel-le-Praz, and there is a guy in that shop, and he is one of the best boot fitters in the world probably. He is absolutely unreal. He fits all of the boots for all of like the French race team, the Courchevel race team. This guy is absolutely off the chart. He's been doing it forever. He knows what he doesn't know about fitting boots. There is nothing to know. And they actually have their own range of insoles, and he made this one for me. And I now use this inside my Fischer ZipFit liner, inside my head caliber 130 BOA 2 boot, and it is just an incredible combination. When I first started using this double BOA, first of all, I had an opinion on it before I even started using it, and that opinion was a negative opinion, which makes me one of those ignorant people, because I was totally wrong. I was absolutely, categorically, totally and utterly wrong. This Kaliber boot is sensational. I absolutely love this boot. This boot gives me close to the performance of my Lange race boot, but with a little bit more comfort, because it's just that bit of a bigger last. And I love this boot. I think if it didn't have the two BOAs, it wouldn't work for me, because I think it would be too big, ever so slightly. Not a lot, but ever so slightly, much like the Fischer was just that sort of tiniest bit too big as you wanted to push on. But with the combination of the dual BOA and my ZipFit liner that I've put loads of cork into to really fill that boot out, I just love this boot. I absolutely love it. I can't tell you how much I think this is a fantastic boot. The build quality, everything about it. They get thrown around in the back of the van, they get smashed around all over the place. Oh, by the way, with the BOA stuff, and I know we're going to talk about that, never had an issue with BOA. Never has it not worked. When the buckles have popped off, they just pop straight back on, and that's only happened 2 or 3 times. To me, they've been absolutely fantastic. Now, that's kind of the end of my boot journey. So my 2 boots that I now use all the time are this Head BOA 2 boot, when I'm just sort of pottering around with friends and family and we're just enjoying having a kind of recreational day, or my Lange boot when I'm probably on my own and I'm really pushing as hard as I can push, and then I would typically use that one. So yeah, I absolutely love these boots. They are phenomenal. I think they look great, they feel great, the flex is perfect for me. I actually put another screw in the back of them to make them a 140, and yeah, they are just a sensation of a boot. I absolutely love them. I can't recommend them enough, and I wouldn't necessarily say go out and buy them, but I would say if you can, try the double BOA, because for me, I just absolutely love it. I really do love it. And these are a Gripwalk as well. And in fact, let's quickly talk about Gripwalk. So on my race boots, I've had these plates put on the bottom of them, and they are just to basically add grip, because otherwise they're very, very slippery race boots. So these have got some little plates put on, and then they grind the boots down and they make them a slightly different size to fit in your ski still. The rest of these boots are all Gripwalk. Now, some people say that Gripwalk is not that grippy, which would be contrary to the name really. In my opinion, that is categorically not the case. I nearly slip over in these things, these Lange ones with the non-Gripwalk, a lot more than I do in the Gripwalk. In fact, I don't even have to think about slipping over when I'm in the Gripwalk, because I think they're that much more grippy. And even on this table, if I push the boot from the back, to push the Gripwalk, you can almost hear it gripping. Can you hear that like squeak? With the non-Gripwalk, it just slides. It's so much less grippy, even on this kind of surface. Now, obviously, if you're on a sheet of ice, it doesn't matter whether it doesn't matter what you've got on the bottom of your feet. No, none of them are going to be particularly more grippy than the other. However, that's not 100% true, because if you put winter tyres on a car, they are more grippy on ice than a non-winter tyre. So you can't categorically say that. There will be a little bit more grip, but ice is ice. However, on every other surface, I promise you, the Gripwalk is more grippy than the non-Gripwalk. That might just be for me, so I'm not saying that that is necessarily the case, but the fact that all of these boots essentially pay for it, and essentially reduce their own profit margin because of it, or have to pass the cost on to you, there's no way that lots and lots of money has not been invested to make these as grippy as possible. That's my take on it. So there you go. Now let's talk about BOA, because it's a big subject that a lot of people for some reason get really like narky about. It's almost like when you mention BOA, you've just offended their mum or something. Like it's not that deep. It's just a product on a boot. Like, I don't know why people get so worked up over it. It's crazy to have any emotions about a ski boot. Other than if you have one and it helps you ski better and you absolutely love it. But to have a negative emotion about a ski boot, that's just kind of weird. Now, BOA itself is, in my opinion, a really kind of smart idea, because what it does is it gives you an option, and options, no matter where they are in life, are good. So to have some sort of extra choice is always a positive, and that's before you even look at the actual technology itself. In terms of durability, I've done, well, lots and lots of hours in my BOA boots collectively. Never had an issue across like now 3 brands, and never ever had an issue. Sometimes the dials, they pop off and you have to clip them back on, but I think that's happened to me maybe twice or something like that. They pop straight back on and they go back into life. The wire that they use, you're never breaking that wire. And if you do somehow, they have a lifetime warranty and they'll replace it completely, no questions asked, free of charge. And I know people that have real inside knowledge on that replacement process, and it is there and it is real. So you don't really have to worry about these things breaking. Now, what is the negative of BOA? Let me tell you about my negatives. First of all, winding it up is a pain in the backside. As much as I quite like BOA as a thing, I don't like the fact that you have to wind it 1,000 times, and I hate the noise. If you're in a quiet place and you're cranking it up, it's really irritating that you have to do this, and you have to do it, I'm not joking, you have to rotate this thing maybe 10 times on each one. So that's 4 per putting your boots on that you have to do, and it's annoying. That is the first negative. The second negative is that once you have found the tightness that you like, on most boots, there's no gauge or anything to go back to it. On some, they have numbers on the tongue, and you can kind of go back, but it's never as accurate as you want it to be. On a buckle, you turn it a little bit, you put it on like number 3 or whatever, and bang, every time you go straight back to where you left off before. So from that perspective, again, buckles are just way, way, way better. The other thing that sucks with a BOA system, especially not so much with the lower BOA, this doesn't really affect the lower BOA, but the upper BOA, although it does actually affect lower BOA as well, but mostly with the upper BOA, is the restriction in terms of space, in terms of getting them on. It took me an eternity to learn how to put these boots on with the ZipFit liner. The ZipFit liner, really, you have to put on your foot first, and then you have to put your foot into the boot. And it's only now that I've really got this down to an art form, and I can get them on super quick. But when I first started, oh my God, I'd be falling on the floor. I'd have people helping me. It was a disaster. They physically don't open anywhere near as wide or with as much ease as a non-BOA boot, whether it's on the lower or the upper. You feel it more on the upper, a lot more, by the way. The lower, not really that much of a big deal. If you've got a massive high instep, it might be a big deal, but actually for the most part, it's not a big deal on the lower. But the upper is a real restriction. It's a pain in the backside. You can't crank them open. It's a 100% is a negative, in my opinion. However, now I know like my routine of how to get them on. I can actually do it really easily, and I can do it just as quickly as I can with the buckles. And first of all, what I did is I actually bought this boot horn from ZipFit. And this boot horn, you can kind of put down the back of your boot, and it slides in super easy, especially if you've got like a bit of a silicone spray that you can put on it, which is what I used to do in the early days. That was the only way I can get these bloody things on. But now I don't even use that at all, and I don't use silicone. I can just get them on every single time very, very quickly. But there is an art to it, I promise you. So in terms of BOA, there's also an added cost because they cost the manufacturer money, which means it has to be passed on to you. So they are, to me, the negatives. So the noise, the number of times you have to turn it, the fact you can't go back accurately to a previous setting, the restriction in terms of size of actually putting them on. When you take them off, you just pull it out and they open right up, and it's super quick and easy, maybe even quicker than doing the buckles, or at least the same time. So I don't have an issue with that. But yeah, they are my negatives with BOA. What are my positives? Well, the first big positive is this. As you ski throughout the day, your boots get looser. Now, what that means is, and I have this even with my Langes that are ridiculously tight, as the day goes on, I have to jump maybe 1 or 2 notches on the buckles to keep them as tight as they were first thing in the morning. And with that, you only really have a few measurements before you have to start unwinding and winding, and then they're going to be wrong when you put them back on tomorrow. So you only really have the 4 notches on the buckle to define the size. Whereas with the BOA, I could literally just do 1 click, 2, 3 clicks, 4 clicks, and that is a minuscule, minute, micro adjustment that allows you to continuously tighten throughout the day with a very quick movement. That means that from the minute you put them on to the minute you finish, your boots are as tight as they first were in the morning throughout the entire day with no effort whatsoever. That is a huge, huge advantage, in my opinion, that they have over the buckles, and I use both, so I think I'm in a good position to talk about it. Although, like I said, this is only one person's opinion. This is not fact. There is no real facts around this stuff other than the things that are facts. So that is one of the major advantages of BOA. The other thing with BOA that I like as well is I like the fact that you can adjust depending on the conditions. If it's a really cold day and it's like minus whatever 10, 20 outside, you might want a slightly different adjustment on the boot, especially at the beginning of the day, as you might on an April day and it's 25 degrees on the slopes. These allow you to do that without having to mess around too much, and I like that thing. Now, in terms of the fit is an interesting conversation, because when I got these double BOA boots, I thought the one on the top would just be the most ridiculous thing of all time. I really did genuinely believe that, because I'd listened to people talk about it incorrectly, and I should have waited and formed my own opinion, which I do now have. Actually, as it turned out, I'm not really that fussed about the BOA on the lower part of the boot. You can give it or take it from me. I don't really care, because even on my buckles, I don't really have them up very tight anyway. They're like barely tight, because that part of the boot shouldn't need to be tight if the boot fits you properly. In fact, you should essentially be able to have these all undone if you've got a well-fitted boot and still be able to ski to a reasonable level, which actually on some of my courses they have made you do. The one that I actually prefer, believe it or not, is the upper BOA, which I know is going to be hugely conflicting with what other people might think. But actually, I love the upper BOA more than the lower BOA, because these are the ones that you tighten right up. And to me, it gives such a nice fit. Now, what I do know is that if you have certain shaped legs, that is not going to be the case for you. And the reason that is because there is the way that they both pull together. Now, there's a misconception that they pull equally. They don't. All of these BOA boots that I know of, they're all designed to pull the lower buckle area, so the one closest to your ankle, tighter than the upper. And on my head boots, they definitely do that. As you tighten them in, you can even see it on here, the lower one pulls before the upper one. So the one that you want tighter, which is the one closer to the curve of the ankle, actually is tighter. And for my shaped leg, it works absolutely perfectly. And even on my beautiful fitted Lange, these have a nicer tightness around the lower leg than my Langes do. And when you pair that up with the fact that you can gently add tightness throughout the day without having to rebuckle and mess around, and to have micro adjustments, that's why I love these boots so much. They fit me so beautifully. They work so well. I love the flex. I love everything about them, except for the negatives with the BOA, which I spoke about earlier. But the positives of the BOA way outweigh the negatives for me, hugely outweigh the negatives. And I just love these boots. I don't know how good they would be with the headliner because I've never used them, but this combination of the ZipFit, the MV ZipFit, with this boot, they are just fantastic. I can't say it enough, and I love the upper BOA. And if I had the choice between upper BOA and lower BOA, I could not care less about the lower BOA. It gives me no benefit whatsoever really that I can think of other than those adjusting it throughout the day really. But the upper BOA, to me, the fit is so perfect. It just wraps, it tightens that lower one slightly more than the upper one, and I just love the way they fit, and I could ski these boots for an eternity. They're so comfortable, they're so warm, they have enough performance, not as much performance as them, but not that, you've really got to push to notice the difference. They are just an amazing boot with that combination with the insole that I told you about, the ZipFit liner. They are unreal and I love them, and I'm going to keep these boots for a very long time and use them relentlessly in connection with my Lange boots. My Fischer boots, the RC4 Pros, unfortunately are now been pushed to one side, and I will allow other people to use them who come on a ski holidays with me who don't have their own boots. And they are a size down from the original K2, so now I've got like my own little kind of rental system going on for my friends and family to be able to use those boots, so they will get their use. That, I know guys, was a long video. I hope it was interesting to you. I hope it was informative. I hope it helps you make decisions and buying choices when it comes to your own ski boots. If you want recommendations for boot fitters, Billy Ski Bartlett, unreal in the UK. You've also got, oh God, I can't remember his name, which I know is really rude. I'm annoyed with myself, but the guy from the Courchevel Ski Centre in Courchevel-le-Praz, he's unreal, that guy. I mean, he's off the chart. If you're ever in the Three Valleys or even within a couple of hours of that place and you want a new boot or a refitted boot, go to see that guy. He's off the chart. And then Tim in Zermatt, again, absolutely off the chart boot fitter. What he doesn't know about boots, bearing in mind he fits boots for all the instructors and they're on their boots for 150 days a year or whatever it is, there's not a lot left to know. So that is my recommendation. That's all the information I have on boots. If you've got any questions, please do drop them in the comments or send me an email or message me on Instagram, whatever the case may be, and I will make a small video for you on Instagram. Hopefully, like I said, this is the precursor for some videos that I'm going to do with the guys themselves who are the boot fitters. They're going to tell us a lot more information than I've been able to tell you at a much higher level. So hopefully that'll be super interesting. Thank you for watching. If you got to the end, I appreciate you. Have a great week. Hope you're looking forward to the new ski season. The snow is falling and I will see you in the next one. See ya.